Marshall McFerrin is a folk family trio from Dallas, Texas. This father, son, and daughter combo have been creating harmonies as close as their genetics for as long as they can remember. Their kinship, mixed with their own highly refined styles, creates an unmistakable and unique sound that urges the listener to redefine the boundaries of the folk genre. After performing together for most of their lives, they made it official, forging Marshall McFerrin, a name born from their family lineage. Now, sit back and relax as Songbird Sessions proudly presents Mac and Sydney from the McFerrin Trio.
Hi, this is Tom Burkett with Songbird Live, and this is Songbird Sessions. We're going to start with our good friends, the Price family, which is part of the Marshall McFerrin Trio. And today we have 2/3 of that trio with us today. And we're going to start with a song that Sydney Price wrote, and it's called what?
Off the Face of the Earth.
Off the Face of the Earth. I think you're going to love this song, and we're going to talk about it in just a little bit. But let's hear a little bit of Off the Face of the Earth.
The face of the earth. No more calls for the clues to Sunday crosswords. You have moved to a cloud. It's blocking my sun. Please move on. Same picture, day after day. Here is your kiss, here is her face. She is nothing like me. I know what I need. It's not this daily reminder. It's a bad sign when good news feels like this. I'd rather go blind than see one more simple bliss that we never didn't get around to. Didn't get the chance to me. I haven't a clue what you didn't see. Now I'm turning the page. If I hear your name, it's just passing as it falls off the face of the earth.
Yay. We're going to talk about numerous things, but one of the purposes of this podcast is because the Songbird is for music lovers. I would like for us to help people to understand more, not that I'm trying to be a professor or anything like that, because I'm not, But the idea that you can listen at different levels, and the more that you understand what you're hearing, the more fun it is, I think. And that's what the Songbird is, to be a gift to music lovers, And so anyway, we're going to talk about this song. I think there are a whole bunch of ways to listen to this song. But in the meantime, let's just talk a little bit about the family and the musical journey that you guys are in. First of all, you're called Marshall McFerrin, and I call it Marshall McFerrin Trio. I don't know what y'all call it.
3 of us.
That's where I got that from.
Yeah, there you go.
But you have performed with more people than that.
Every now and then we'll get an acoustic bass player, and that, of course, adds a lot of bottom and rhythm and stuff, and kind of helps, pronounce what Mac and I are doing. Yeah. And so,
that real quick.
Sure.
Mac, he's referring to his son, Mac Jr.
Mac Jr., yes.
And who is a marvelous guitar player in his own right. And so you put these guitar players together, you really have something quite special. Yeah. Now, continue on.
Having extra instruments, we played out here with Milo Daring, and who plays everything. And it was great having him on the violin, fiddle.
And cello.
The cello was just, that was really exquisite. Pedal steel, dobro, which I think he plays great. But all of these songs kind of can lend themselves to those configurations of instruments. And so the arrangements come out of all that kind of stuff. But Sydney is kind of the main songwriter as far as originals go. Mac and I have done some. But Sydney really has a plethora of great songs. We can play one of the first ones that you ever shared with me, Spirit, later on. Yeah. And they had their deep in lyrics and deep in chord changes. When she came up with this has a very almost like a Gilberto kind of string of chord changes as far as how they come together and all. And especially the part, if I can do this really, da 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 da, and then da 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 da. Now listen to this. Da 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 da. Woo. Da 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 da. Oh man, I mean that's just
it's gorgeous.
You came up with that, girl.
Thanks, Dad.
Yeah. Now, Sydney, did you come up with the chord changes yourself? Or?
I did.
Wow.
Thank you.
That's impressive. And of course, having a dad that can do what he does.
And tell me what it is. That's awesome. Yeah. He can explain to me what I did, and he makes it sound so cool.
Yeah. What a gift, really. There's, once again, you just add layers of complexity and interest. A lot of, nowadays the music, it's like, how simple can you make it? Yeah. Which is kind of like a race to the bottom. And y'all are doing it different. You just add to that complexity.
Well, thank you.
All right, so tell me some more about the group. Marshall McFerrin Trio.
Well, I had 3 children almost 40 years ago. I can't believe I have a 40-year-old son. It's a shocker. But with most guys my age, they have that and even more. I think some of them had their kids when they were 20 or something. But anyhow,
or they're teens.
They are teens. Yeah, it's absolutely legally though. We named my name came from a long lineage of McFerrins, McFerrin. And it comes, and you can kind of help me with the vernacular there, Sydney, but from the Scots-Irish area, and Price, Pryce, was how that was spelled. So the McFerrin kind of moved into the Welsh area, it gravitated.
Yeah, I think our current theory is that just in that big mashup of people immigrating to America through Ireland, the McFerrins, that's kind of where... That's at least as far back as we've managed to trace the name. We don't really know where it comes from. True. I think our working theory is we're from some part of Wales. Yeah. But I just think, I don't know, I probably think we're just English and nobody wants to be English.
Yeah, now nobody misconstrue that. We weren't from a family of whale hunters. Yeah. We have nothing to do with that. Yeah, I don't want Greenpeace to come in here. The thing is the McFerrin crest was, we've had that now for 6 generations.
Wow.
It was 5 up to... me, and Matt, to my son Mac, and now he has named his daughter the first female McFerrin, Eslyn McFerrin Price.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then Sydney Marshall. Go ahead, Sydney.
That's also a family name. My middle name is Marshall, and that's been in our family for several generations.
From Elisa's side.
Yeah, from my mom's side. So that was kind of the...
But yeah, the Marshalls are on this side, and we the McFerrins are over here.
Yes.
And luckily the twain did meet. But
yes. The Tynes. There you go.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the names, and then we went back and forth a lot about what to call the trio, and I don't know who first suggested having the middle name.
It was Christy, my son's wife.
Oh, okay.
Christy McFerrin, yeah.
Nice.
Christy Mascaroni.
Christy Mascaroni, yes.
She's from the Italians,
Yeah,
so this is great.
Yes.
We have the Italians, the Irish,
Yeah,
the Irish and the Italian, the Welsh.
Yeah. And then
no more wars in our
so that's
house,
kind of
you know.
what we decided we'd call the name. But the three of us have been playing forever. I mean, it's since we were young.
Interesting note, Tom, on that. That's true. In Sydney, when she was, I think, maybe 11, I heard you singing in one of the back rooms, and just this sound was coming out. And I went back and I opened the door and says, What CD is that? What is that? And Sydney goes, what? And I said, what was that sound? She goes, I don't know. And so she was kind of shy about it and didn't want to share it with me until about several weeks later we were in the car and some Aretha Franklin tune of all things came on. And she went, hey, hey. And I went, girl. And that's when it says, is that okay? I said, oh my God, you got to start singing. So, I sing in my church and have in certain configurations of that throughout the years. And Sydney would come and sing. And always the people would just go, wow, what is that sound? And she's developed it on her own after that. But tell them about the junior high thing with the John Lennon thing.
Oh, yeah, that was fun. I just happened to notice a poster in high school on the board of my choir class or something, and it was for a songwriting competition called the John Lennon Songwriting Scholarship or something like that, and it was put on by BMI, and I took it home to Dad, and I was like, hey, let's do this. And he's like, all right, when is it due? And I said, tomorrow.
Just like all our homework.
Very, very supportive Dad. We just kind of went into the little sort of sound booth in his home studio, and we put together an arrangement of an original I had written sometime earlier that year, maybe. And it must have been a slow day at the office because they chose it and it won. Moon Lullaby, thank you. I'd forgotten the title. It's been a long time.
Can you sing a cappella of that thing?
It's been a long I was 17 when I wrote it. There, you remember it?
I remember, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, because
nice.
boy, I stayed up all night thinking
I know,
about it.
you did.
So what happens is we send it off,
Yeah.
and a few weeks go by, and all of a sudden, Sydney gets this call and says, Dad, you better listen to this. I'm not sure this is legit. And it was some people from BMI.
Really?
And BMI had sponsored that. And this guy says, hey, we were wondering if y'all were going to call back. I said, well, BMI in New York, right? He goes, yes, I'll send you a card and all that. I said, well, what's happened? What's this all about? He says, well, we loved your daughter's song. Simple, beautiful, voice was great, and she's won first prize. And I said, well, that's great. I said, what is it? I said, well, Yoko Ono has put this together, and she's won a $10,000 scholarship.
Wow.
To the college of her choice. We went, what?
Whoa.
Well,
Yeah,
it was
that was
funny. We
fun.
almost missed the boat on it because we thinking somebody's scamming
You
us.
know.
And you won that contest right out of the box. This
Yes.
was one of the first things that you did. That's amazing.
And I peaked. I've never won anything else since then. So that was it. I've never won a single competition or contest
Well,
since then.
that's because you're not entering them.
I have actually.
I don't know what the relation is in your mind to Bob Dylan, but I never, was a fan of Bob Dylan because I came out from the instrumental part, and he's not a very good guitar player, quite frankly, not a very good singer, but his lyrics are unbelievable,
Yeah.
and what we were talking about earlier, kind of transcendent. It's more than the song. Anyway, you do that same thing with
thank you.
with your songs. It's folks listening here. You got to chase down some of her songs. I mean, it's just everyone is way more than the song.
Oh, thanks.
Which you've got something. You can't stop.
If I could make a comment on Bob Dylan,
Sure.
that da-da-da-da and all that strumming and humming, but the earlier things, he kind of started a trend of those chord changes and stuff that would allow for the lyric to finish. And so, his rhythm, I thought, God, that guy has no sense of rhythm, but he really did. I mean, he was just chunking along like this. But all of the things, if you listen to the North Country Fair, where you going, my sweet man? The North Country Fair. You know what I'm saying? And it was just out there. But man, I always thought, wow, who is this guy? And he ended up being one of the great covered artists of our time. I mean, I don't know how many artists, but you're right. Sydney kind of has that aesthetic of storytelling, And stuff like that, like we probably should do Spirit. That is a good one.
Yeah.
That was one of my first ones, but go ahead.
Okay. Well, let's do Spirit, and this is a great tune as well. They have played here at the Songbird numerous times, and it's just always a treat. And you guys have to look because we'll get them back. And once again, they do covers, but they do very artful covers. But then a highlight, especially whenever you go back and listen to the album, because you only take in so much whenever you go to a concert, but there's so much more there. And because I've been able to go back and listen, for me, it's like an extra joy every time I get to listen to your concerts again.
Nice, yeah.
So anyway, so Spirit, tell us about it.
Well, it's an original I wrote several years ago now. I'm trying to remember when I was in Hawaii. I think that was 2013.
Yes.
Yeah, it feels like 2013, 2014. And I was spending a summer in Hawaii. And it's, a magical place full of an abundance of nature and color and flora and fauna that is very different than Texas. So I was very inspired to write about it, and I wrote this song. Yeah.
Well, let's hear.
Maybe the spirit is a bird learning to fly, or maybe it's an ocean wave bringing in the tide, the mouth of a river open wide, or a stone in the water catching all the light. Maybe the spirit is a seed reaching for the sun, or maybe it's a tall tree catching the wind and letting it run. The song you sing till the work is done. An empty hand that fills another one. Maybe the spirit is a dream, only now and then remembered. Or maybe it's the tears at long last surrendered. A fire or its dying embers, a passing storm, or the quiet after. Maybe the spirit's all these things and always will be.
Very nice, Dad.
Hey,
Great.
good song, Sid.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's a nice song. And once again, having a dad that plays like that.
I'm very spoiled.
Well, and once again, we're missing, because even better with Mac Jr. Just adds more depth to what you're hearing. And once again, that did you come up with the chords
Yes.
progressions on that?
Yes.
That's amazing. And how old were you when you did it?
So 2013, that was almost 10 years ago, so I would have been around 27, 26? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Thanks.
A lot of depth to that. Mac, you have, there's a story I wanted you to tell. There's a guitar that you had made specially for you.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it turned out to be just a real big time winner.
It
And
really was.
yeah.
So I had a friend, Chris Carrington, was quite the guitar player, classical guitar player. But he came out of rock and roll. One of his idols was Jimi Hendrix, who he saw play at the Fillmore East in New York back in the day, right? Oh yeah, he saw a lot of good guys up there.
Yeah.
And Jeff Beck, a number of people who were traveling through. But anyhow, I met him. He went to SMU to study under Bob Guthrie, and I was up in North Texas. Not my composition, I'm trying to say my...
Conducting, composing?
Composing. I studied composing. My degree was in composing and composition in theory. And so my teacher, because I was studying classical guitar, just getting started, asked if I would want to come to this party and get together with Chris. This all leads up to where the guitar came from. So
Chris, by the way, is an excellent classical guitarist.
Yes.
Oh.
And a luthier.
On top of
Yes.
it. And he didn't start out that way. So we become friends. We played together at this party. Both of us had huge egos, and I play decent now, but boy, I was a good player back in the day. And we kind of had battle of the guitars. Started at 9 o'clock at my teacher's house, and he knew this would happen. And we played till 3 that morning. 6 hours. And we played some of the Beatles songs over about 7 or 8 times and put all kinds of wild arrangements to them. Played some classical music that we both knew together. And, well, I can play this classical piece. Can you play that figured bass or chords underneath what's going on? And we do things like...
So you guys nerded out.
Well, we
what you're
nerded
saying.
out.
Yeah.
Walked on, became best friends. So later on, he gets this job, and he calls me up. He goes, "Hey, I'm going to play and go on tour with Al Di Meola." I said,
Wow.
"What? You're kidding me?" He says, "Yeah, he's formed this new deal." He was playing at a restaurant called Genovine's in downtown Dallas, and Al, Paco de la Cia, and John McLaughlin now.
Really?
The three heavies.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, played a concert, and they were eating there in a little private room, and Chris was playing, and they leaned over like this and told the waitresses, "Go get that guy." And so he comes in, and Chris, of course, recognized Al and Paco right away.
Huh?
He came in, he said he stopped, like, he goes, and they go, "Hey, come in, shut up, sit down here, man, and play some of that stuff you were playing," you know.
Yeah.
And they said, "Quit shaking, you're doing great." So Chris finally calmed down and everything. He played and started to finally play the Fourth Lute Suite, some Venezuela things, some things from Piazzolla. And Al Di Meola goes, "Hey, we're doing some arrangements of Piazzolla and Lauro and all those kind of guys," which I used to play as I can't anymore, so I'm not even trying. But we used to, so he would start going on tour of them. And at first they just mic'd his guitar, Al's and stuff like that. And Ovation had some electric nylons, and Harati, the only two. And he called me up, he goes, "By God, when I get back in Dallas, I'm going to make my own guitar." I said, "What's up?" He goes, "These things are terrible. They're not terrible in the sense, but they don't sound like real robust, mic'd classical guitars," he says, "and I have an idea." So he said, "I've made a guitar and I'm going on tour with Al." Came back and said, "Well, how is that?" He goes, "Well, Al wants me to make him one." He said, "I'll make you one too." So I bought his 6th or 7th guitar. And have you ever seen the Picasso paintings? When he was in Cubism and the person's got there in the right. Like you should have seen the face. Things were sticking out over here. It was really weird, but it was the sound of them, amazing. And he made it out of some wood that he had bought, especially from Brazil. That were some buildings they had torn out because Brazilian rosewood was really hard to get at this time. This was in the 90s. And one was from a number of stores that they took out the old shutters and stacked up, and one was from a church, and one was from places like that. So I always thought that as a believer, I said, "Well, I want mine that came from the church." He goes, "Sure, man, got you covered." Who knows? But he made me this guitar, Brazilian rosewood, and a spruce top, and it was darker than this one, bigger. You've seen that one too. Wonderful guitar, and way up here in this area, see how even that is? When we used to play classical guitars, you come up in this area, that C would go boom, and the D would even be worse. They were like wolfing out or something. And it was what most guitarists just thought, oh my God, this is where we have to play. And they'd refinger things and stuff like that. All that disappeared on his guitars. So I asked him, I said, well, what did you do? He goes, I changed the bracing. I went, how do you know anything about that? He goes, I just saw this when I took it out. And so here it changes. And he got templates, no doubt, to build his instruments. This one was I think it was about the, 300th guitar? 363. I mean,
Wow.
for 10, 12 years, he just started making guitars and sending them all over the world.
Wow.
So this is some Brazilian rosewood on the back that had this kind of, he calls it a defect. It's not what it's called, but a little flashing in it here. He says, I want to split this thing out, and it'll look real cool. And he said, and then I'll take the parts where it kind of creeps back in on the sides here, and just kind of run it around this area on the tops and the sides.
Mm-hmm.
And so just
That's
came up
really
with this
beautiful.
beauty, crazy design. And then he had a top here. This was a full cut deal. Didn't have a cutaway with this top. He said, hey, one of my guys sent this back. He didn't like the color of it, and I'll give you a discount on that. And I said, well, it's beautiful, spruce and all that. He said, well, I'll really fancy it up with some inlays and all this kind of stuff and put a special pickup in it. The bridge is also rosewood, a rosewood keyboard. I think this is some kind of maple. I forgot. But it's got a block here like most guitars, and the keys are special. And this was the crest on here. Can you see that out there? Take a peek at this. Don't worry, folks. This only lasts about an hour and a half. So this is a crest that he made himself, and it's called the Carrington. And his guitars are made by Chris Carrington. So he cut this thing away, and so I could reach in here when I'm playing real fast, which I don't do anymore. But anyhow, and also, look here. Created a sound hole on top of the guitar. And so what happens when you play now, this also not only comes out of the sound hole like this, but it lifts up under your chin so you don't overplay. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Either that or my iPhone. I have a pad, kind of read the words. But anyhow, it was really it's been an excellent instrument. He's kind of well known all over the world. I'm making guitars. He's kind of quit for a while. But now I understand he's back making them again. Still great friends. I still have him over, and he just blows me away because he brings these arrangements of all these classical artists. He goes, Mac, you read this part, and I'll read that part. I went, that's got a lot of notes on it, Chris. And he goes, we'll do it really slow. What do you know? Okay. But yeah.
He's crazy.
So you should bring him sometime.
Yeah.
Oh, I would love that.
Would be great.
And he will be a nervous performer, but he'll come.
And then maybe you can have at the same time bring Milo Deering.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
get all of them out here.
Dream team.
Wouldn't that be
That
something?
Anyhow, going about Chris, because he's a good buddy, but he may be a beautiful guitar. I need to practice on it more, as you can tell.
Cool. Okay, now I want to talk to Sydney about songwriting again. I have this theory that people listen on levels, and a lot of people basically, the thing they can remember about that song is either the chorus, the hook, particular line, or something like that. I believe that a lot of people listen that way. Some people listen to the story. They're just enamored with the story and they totally get it. But I think that there's a third level that a lot of people, most people miss. But there is this, I don't know if I'm using the right word or not, this transcendent wisdom that comes out of the song, that you can recount the story, but there are certain lines that you can take with you for the rest of your life that just has some wisdom in that. I think that song, the first one that you did, which is Off the Face of the Earth, I think that's very much that. I think Poetry Texas, the song that you wrote about there, I think that has a lot of transcendent message in that. So let's talk about that. Well, first of all, could y'all do the Poetry Texas?
Oh, sure.
Okay. All right. So talk to me about where the song came from and what the basic story is.
Poetry Texas specifically.
Yes.
Well, I was invited to a wedding that was literally happening in a town called Poetry, Texas. And I had not heard of that town. I didn't know it was maybe about an hour east of Dallas. Is that right, Dad? East,
Something like that.
And this is also kind of a while ago now. But I was just struck by the pretty name and that was kind of where the idea of a song came from, which just happens sometimes. You're like, oh, that sounds poetic. That sounds interesting. That sounds like there's something there. It's funny because this song, it is very straightforward in a lot of ways. Like, I'm just telling the story. Like, the lyrics, I sometimes extrapolate like meaning from the story, but it really is a series of events. And yeah, it was somebody I hadn't seen in a long time, didn't know if I really still related to this community anymore. And that was kind of the emotional core of the song, I think, is kind of about like belonging, about I've changed and I'm going back to some place that I don't really recognize anymore. And then, you know, you could also take other meanings about like ambivalence about marriage and all kinds of like faith and God. You can find a lot of things in the lyrics if you're looking for them, which is also something I think kind of speaks to what you were saying, is like the beauty of a song is every time you listen to it, you could potentially find something different depending on where you are in your life.
Yeah, and the idea of taking something with you. In a lot of ways, it's similar to a good sermon. You know, you hear a sermon, but you can't go back and kind of recreate it, you know. But for me, at least, if I can take something out of that sermon and apply it to my life, you know, that was, to me, a really good sermon. So let's hear a little bit of Poetry Texas, and then we can talk about it after that.
Sure. When you were talking about choruses and like the structure of a song kind of tells you where the important moments are. You know, it's like the bridge is, you know, the verse sets the scene. The bridge takes you to the chorus. The chorus is probably the emotional or story point, climax, the meat, the heart of the topic. And what I think is interesting about most, not all, but most kind of folk music traditions, old and new, is it's a style of music that doesn't often have choruses. It sometimes has refrains, but even then it doesn't usually have those points of like, oh, now I'm getting the point of the of the story, the point of the song. And I think that invites people to listen a little more closely. Yeah, because you really have to pay attention and be like, okay, this is like the third verse is like act 3, and you have to find out what's going to happen because there isn't that moment of explication kind of constantly coming through the chorus. So I think structure has something to do with the way we pay attention to songs too.
Probably.
Yeah. All right, Dad, hit it.
Here we go.
To a wedding in Poetry, Texas, an old friend I hadn't seen in years was marrying a girl from the church we grew up in as kids. I went bearing the gift that my mother had picked from the Macy's at the new mall, and I wondered if I anything left in common with these people at all. 'Cause enough years go by and you change enough times, you forget who you were back in 2005 when you last sat in those chairs under those lights. Saying the words hidden behind the white lace and the pearls, clutching the roses heart has the promises. But enough years go by, you hear I do enough times, and you wonder if God still turns water to wine, still turns young lovers' best intentions into something that stands the test and temptations. Well, this ain't Canaan, I know, but where else does God have left to go except to these small town crowds with the tears in their eyes, saying, yeah, they're gonna make it. I just grew up around the time I gave up on the idea that love is ever enough. I grew up, so did my demons, so did my angels, so did the voice in my mind telling me you'll be fine at the wedding in Poetry, Texas. And I sat on the side in those chairs and those lights, and I wished the iced tea was wine. And in all of that color, in all of that noise, flying by at the breakneck speed of joy, I watched love go dancing by in black and white.
Yay.
Very nice, Dad.
All right, Sydney, where did that line come from? I grew up, so did my angel. I grew up, so did my angels, so did my demons. Where did that come from?
I don't know.
See, I think that's profound
Thank
because, you know, we have our better side,
Yeah.
the ones that constantly bite us in the butt, you know, and to realize, you know, I'm both of those. You know, talk about the meeting here a little bit.
I wonder if I meant at the time of this writing that if it has a chorus, it's definitely those moments where it's sort of me sort of speaking directly to God. And I think I was, and perhaps this is a normal sort of experience of growing up in a modern world and trying to kind of bring your faith with you, but you don't know how it fits anymore. And especially like this was an experience of really very literally going back and seeing people that I had kind of lost touch with in my church. And I think doing the inevitable comparison that you can do when you go sort of into your past and being like, I'm very different now. And I've grown up. Like at the time of this writing, I thought, you know, I'm not really sure what it means to be saved. I don't know what it means to think that love is enough. And I've grown out of all of these kind of concepts of my faith. And so maybe that's what I meant, but like, so did my angels, so did my demons. Like, they're still there, but they've also grown up as well. And they're not saying the same things, and they don't look the same anymore.
That's deep.
Thank you. It's interesting to go back in time and try to put myself in the place where I was when I was writing that song, because it is sort of a archaeological dig. And sometimes, very truly, you just choose things because they sound nice.
I think what's interesting is it follows the age-old term of country western is, you know, a good story in 3 chords.
Amen.
And those are 3 chords.
Yeah, and it's in 3/4 time. Yeah, that one, I think that is an interesting song because it's, I really appreciate country music's continued legacy of very much a series of events, and you're telling the story just like it happened. That is very hard to do in a way that feels artistic and interesting and poetic, and that's something I love about country music. It's something I love about Willie Nelson and, you know, Pancho and Lefty, and it's just
Those great
very
stories.
difficult to do, and that I think is really the only time I've managed to pull it off.
Well, I think you should continue.
Thank you.
And just because you never know where those stories come from.
Yes.
But they're still in you.
Yes.
And that's true for everybody. You know, I mean, you know, even if you're not a musician, the reality is you have stories in everybody's life, where they're kind of transitioning from their preconceived notions into reality and this phase of my life, because we all go through those. And that we can record those in music, I think, really opens up something neat. And once again, the more that you listen to her stories, the more you're going to absolutely love Sidney Price and the Marshall McFerrin Trio. They also do some fabulous covers, but their thing is because they have skills that it comes out a lot of times way better than the original covers that they're covering. I could sit here for several hours and just pepper you with, hey, play this song, but we won't be able to do that for this podcast. But anyway, I want to thank you both for being here. We wish Mac Jr. real speedy recovery.
Yes.
But ladies and gentlemen, be looking for Marshall McFerrin Trio, because as you're starting to get a glimpse, there's just so much there to that concert that they're going to be doing. And then, we'll have a podcast that you can actually listen and refer to and dig deeper, just let it play. And there's just so much here. And in a world where there's almost a race to the bottom, in music, it's kind of an ugly time in the music industry, where the songs that they're promoting there's just not much there.
Yeah, you have to search for it, I think. I think in the pop field, for sure, anything on the radio is completely produced with mostly sound effects, sound design, beats mostly, a lot of dance, a lot of theatrics around it. But it's good for all you kiddos. I think the thing is...
I do love pop music, but
Sure.
I'll be the first to admit that it's there. You do have to look for... It's kind of finding a needle in a haystack, that isn't either just a replication of exactly what came before, or has even the slightest kind of innovation or authenticity. But it is out there every now and then,
One will pop its head up, that's for sure.
The reality is we can't ignore the financial aspect of this. So we have a lot of the tribute bands, which we love, and boy, we've had some really good ones here. But you're missing the creativity that a group like this has. And so we'll do a mixture of very artistic, deeper stuff, and of course the tribute bands that, quite frankly, pay the bills.
I think people are hungry for just that higher quality, so they're definitely willing to pay more for a tribute band. And I think people are, a little more willing to pay money for something that they know. It's hard to take a risk on something you don't know.
Right.
You're like, is this going to be good? Is this going to be bad? Like, it's hard to take a risk on something you're not familiar with. Sometimes it pays off a lot, and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you know you're going to hear Fleetwood Mac, you're like, take my money.
Yeah.
Right. In my position, I get to bring in bands that I like. Why would I not? And so anyway, like I say, we will have pretty much a tribute band a month. And then, but in between, we're going to have great artists that you don't know their names of the band. You don't know the names of the people in the band, but that doesn't mean that they're not excellent musicians. The rich with tremendous musicians, and that's what we're going to bring. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to Songbird Sessions, and a special thanks to the Marshall McFerrin Trio. And duo. And anyway, we encourage you to come out and listen. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you for being here. And we could talk all night, but we better not. All right. Come see us here at the Songbird. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. For more info on our current show schedule, please visit songbbirdlive.com. And for current updates, please check the Songbird Live Facebook page. We hope you enjoyed today's episode.
Credits rolling. That's good.